This is the Why the Last Man podcast on TV Podcast Industries. We're talking about the second episode of Why the Last Man, Would the World Be Kind?
When I was pregnant with Kimber, a woman in a hair salon told me I was having a girl. Well, how did you know? I asked her. Girls steal your beauty, she told me. It's true. I was awake all night worried. Would she be pretty? Would she be thin? Would the world be kind to her? Or would it make her feel small? Would she tell me her secrets? Or would she see everything she hated about herself in me? Or worse, would I see everything I hated about myself in her? With James, it was like, I just hope his guts are on the inside.
Welcome back, fellow survivors, to our second episode of Why the Last Man on TV Podcast Industries, talking about episode 2, Would the World Be Kind? We're recording these back to back, and I'm one of your hosts, Derek.
Hello there, fellow survivors. I'm one of your other hosts, John.
And still I'm asking myself, why am I Chris?
Why are you Chris?
Why are you Chris?
I'm getting more and more in-depth and philosophical on this.
I hope so.
Well, we only know that if you will start to ruminate and philosophize around that question.
It is.
That you're posing.
See what it comes from in episode 3. You're going to have to listen through all of episode 2 and wait till the intro for episode 3 to see where this goes.
Spoilers, episode 3 is going to be Where is Chris?
Bye!
As we said, we are recording these back-to-back, episode 1, 2, and 3. We hope you've watched episode 1, 2, and 3 back-to-back, because you probably did push forward as you watched the episodes, because they are intended to be seen as, I think, 3 parts of a whole, the way they were released. I think your first episode is your introduction to the world and what's going on. Your second episode is establishing the characters, and the third episode is going to be pushing forward and how the series is going to progress, I think, is how you'd probably categorize the 3 episodes. But let's get into our discussion about this episode of Why the Last Man? Once again, based on the comic book series by Brian K. Vaughn and Pia Guerra, with the showrunner Eliza Clark. I mentioned last time Eliza Clark has written episode 1 and 2 and is directed by Louise Friedberg, just like the first episode. John, do you want to tell us what they gave us with your synopsis of episode 2, Would the World Be Kind?
Sure. With the line of succession wiped out, Representative Brown assumes the presidency as the devastating loss of life affects every corner of society. From water provision to food and power, she works with the remaining female representatives to deal with the mounting catastrophes. But some who used to be on the inside of the government, including the president's daughter Kimberly and his senior aide Nora, find that they are now on the outside of the evolving government. Still reeling from her accidental killing of her former boyfriend, Hero Brown confronts his wife and discovers she's just happy he wasn't alone when he died. Meanwhile, Yorick Brown, the last man, is searching the city for his potential fiancée, Beth. After retrieving his monkey Ampersand, he goes to his sister Hero's apartment to decide what to do next. But Agent 355, who has been sent to find Hero, discovers Yorick instead and reunites the last man on Earth with his mother, President Jennifer Brown.
Excellent stuff. Yes, the aftermath now of the massive event that happened in episode 1, and things are very different for all of our characters in episode 2, aren't they?
Certainly.
The whole world is different at the end of the beginning of this episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it really is. I think, this is, this was an interesting episode for me. I'm not entirely sure, I went with it, what they were trying to do, which I guess was just showing that fallout. And, with the title of the episode, Would the World Be Kind? It's, what is in this aftermath? Is it going to be a kind world, or is it going to be something different, a bit more malevolent? And I guess it's elements of both really here. We see the White House being attacked and breached, and President Brown is not in there, but certainly, there's a lot of confusion, a lot of fear within the society. And that is expressing itself with that attack on the White House. That there's conspiracies raging about what has happened, and why it's happened. And these are creating distrust, suspicion, and fear, more fear. So, that is really interesting. But at the same time, what I really liked was the attempt at containing it, trying to build, from this, or as, President Brown says, we're just trying to survive. We're trying to do the survival, the clearing up of the bodies, the public announcements. So there is still a government. There is still semblance of a society, but I guess it's at that tipping point of, does that survive, or will there be these whole new different power structures, developing, and
just all the impending catastrophes that are going on. Everything's falling apart. And it's a really good idea, isn't it? It's the concept of what if women were in charge of the world is it could be the way they go. But what they really go with is what if this massive catastrophe that wipes out 50% of the population happened? And how are people struggling and surviving with it? So that's what's going on here. I do like where President Brown now is looking at the White House being taken and everybody else around her is going, we have to push them back. We have to make sure they don't breach the White House. She's just going, it's just a house. We can rebuild the house. Yeah. It's fine. We have a lot more important things to deal with here.
Yeah. And I guess it's like, in a sense, a revolution has happened, but not in terms of how we would understand it. It is just simply that, the existing power structures, this idea of the line of succession, for the president, where there's been an event, but there's also the tenuous nature of Jennifer Brown's position as well, and that beginning, as well. And all these people are in new, unknown, fearful, situations like Kimberly and Nora, who, were at the center of power in the US and of one of the superpowers. And now, they're no longer, in the same boat anymore. So really, I thought it was interesting, but I think it was as part of 3 episodes. I enjoyed this episode. I think as on its own, maybe I could just say it felt like it dragged for me, for sure. But I think as part of the 3, I think it works really well.
Yeah, it's such a weird one, isn't it? It's like they've been listening to ourselves for years, or they've been listening to journalists for years who do TV shows, where they always have said, give a show 3 episodes before you decide whether you want to watch it or not. After the 3rd episode, you'll know whether you're in or not to watch the rest of the series effectively. And now channels like Hulu and Amazon Prime are now releasing 3 episodes in one day. So effectively, they're all there for you. Watch all 3 of them and then make your decision. It's like like they've stood to the challenge and said, right, we're going to give you those 3 episodes. So, and then you can commit to the rest of the series, which I think is really interesting that they're doing that now.
Yeah, definitely.
100%. I'm going to save a lot of my thoughts for our discussions. But yes, pretty much the same. I'm leaning more towards John on this one. I think I texted you guys as soon as I finished episode 2 going, ooh, bit of a slow burn. And I was just like, and that's not a bad thing. But in terms of the dropping of individuals, episodes 1, 2, and 3, I was somewhat hesitant. It's very interesting because, like, even originally, I think it was just the first 2 that was going to be released, but then they've added the 3rd in to give it that oomph. And I can see why now.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Because at the end of this episode, you're like, we've got a good one and a slow one. It didn't end with that initial hook that you would like, oh my God, like what? Like that Netflix, I need to let it continue into the next episode just to see, because it very much left it at, okay, I can wait till next week. That's fine.
Okay.
It just wasn't that insatiable, give it to me now.
For you, exactly, Chris, because I think this episode has a massive cliffhanger moment at the end of the episode, and definitely maybe want to watch the other one. The one thing I will say about the episode is so much is crammed in here. There's so much going on. Every character gets a big moment, or every character gets a moment of the episode. We're going to talk about our 3 big moments, the ones that each of us thought were the ones we want to talk about from the episode. But hopefully we'll be able to cover everything that went on, at least enough to talk about. So Chris, do you want to kick us off with your big moment from the episode, the thing that stood out to you?
Sure. One of the key aspects for me is Hero and Sam.
Right.
So, and essentially the journey of Hero throughout this episode.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of see Hero, start to struggle with the death of her lover, because she did just find out he was still with his wife, even though he had told her he was leaving the wife, etc. And we knew that there was a new baby in the scene. So we're introduced back to Hero in these kind of identification centers within New York.
Yeah.
Of kind of like, hey, if they found the body of the man, they'll bring the proof of life, or in this case, proof of death, I should say.
Exactly.
So we find her kind of searching, and we're not sure what, where, why, and then it starts to make sense throughout the episode. But we are also introduced to a man, and you're straight away not fully comprehending. It does take a second to understand what. Now, for readers of the comic book, you understand it straight away. But for some others, they may go, I thought, why was the last man? And its introduction, we within the first 10 seconds, they explain that this is the last testosterone that they could get. So you are introduced to Sam and these other transgendered individuals who are trying to survive. And throughout the course of this episode, you have Hero struggle and Sam struggle. Hero is friends with them, obviously being able to get them testosterone or from some of the medical centers. I think we're kind of led to, suggested that she was able to get them some.
Oh, potentially. I know that we saw Sam last episode. He was with Hero at the AA center, so they definitely have that real closeness of a relationship. Yeah. But you're right. I do love the story. I love how it's played out on screen. I think it's absolutely heartbreaking when you hear Sam going, I'm in the city as a trans man, and I used to feel completely free in New York City, and now every time I go outside, I'm getting posed with these questions of, are you a man? And I have to explain over and over again to these people in a city I used to feel safe in. I think it's a really good treatment of what's going on, for these characters.
Well, and it's even that, he stays with Hero, in the city, despite the other guys taking off and taking off with all the testosterone. I think he has 1 vial left, because they're off to his transphobic grandmother, out in the countryside. And I think that I loved Hero's response and the support that she just briefly gave to Sam in that moment. I thought it was really, really good.
But it was her fault. That was the interesting part, and it was so, for me, was like, yet again, we see, and I called it out in the first episode, these are problematic children. Yarick and Hero.
Definitely.
And it was just, it is, alas, poor Yarick. And Hero is the same. They are so flawed characters. How do we call it? Flawed characters. And the rest of the world falls around that.
I think so. I think they're just dealing with their own thing. And for Hero, it was that, she killed a man, ultimately, in a sense, has gotten a get out of jail free card because of the event. But, for herself, inwardly, it's, I killed him. And no matter what has happened internally, she's got that. And I suspect, that will have to come out at some point to someone in confidence, like Sam. I think with Sam, he's also dealing with the idea that, he's, as Derek has said, he's gone from where, he's in the anonymous big city, in the big smoke, where with diversity and so on. And next thing, he's having to scramble for testosterone with the option of going to a transphobic grandmother of a fellow transgender person, and that is what he's dealing with. And, you know, you see that in the sense that they're trying to get their supplies together, and Hero is like, well, I got it's not a Swiss Army knife, but it's the American kind of equivalent with the pliers. I can't remember, you know, the little like Swiss Army knife type thing.
Multi-tool.
Yeah, something like that. And they go, we've got 3 of those. You were supposed to get gas. And because she's actually not really concentrating on it. So, you know, Sam, I guess, when forced to make the decision because Hero isn't there when they go off, decides to stick with Hero. Yeah. And I just liked her, kind of, you know, realization that it was her fault for not being there, but, you know, is there for him. I thought that was nice.
Exactly. How do you think the other storyline of Heroes played out, Chris? At the finding the wife of her boyfriend, giving her closure, I suppose, on the story of her husband. How do you think the reaction of the wife played out? Did you like that?
I've never been part of infidelity. I should put that out there. I didn't feel this was
No, you
true.
didn't put that out there, Chris, which is the good thing.
But exactly, that's my problem. Well, actually, no, not a problem. But sorry. Anyway, jokes aside, this felt strange for me.
Okay.
It was the ultimate acceptance straight away of Hero's lover's wife, that she knew there was someone, or she always suspected there was someone new, and it was her, and they were driving around together. Oh, it made all sense. It was just that ultimate acceptance and defeat within seconds, and then the storyline's over. And I'm like, I don't understand. I don't have a frame of reference for this. So I kind of like, would you not just a bit scream and shout? Would you cry? Would you just wail?
See, I thought this was really good. It's you know, we're following this massive event that none of us have ever experienced before. So I really liked how they dealt with this in here, because it's something completely different. It's just a reaction of this person to the situation she's in. There's nothing she can do. She can't bring it back. And she wouldn't want to now because she's found out that he has been cheating on her. But I kind of love that she gets closure to her story, which is what she's been looking for these, I think it's 65 days at this stage, 63 days, something like that, that has passed. So 2 months, where Hero has been going to the same place over and over again, seeing this woman here and knowing that it is probably the wife of the person that she was sleeping with. And I love that even though Hero built herself up to get there and has been all consumed by it, the wife effectively goes, well, at least I'm not crazy. I kind of knew that was happening, but at least I know I'm not mad. And at least he wasn't alone when he died, I suppose. Yeah. There is some kind of consolation I can take from the revelation, I suppose. And then that's it. They part ways.
And it's still those echoes of the previous life happening, you know, in the sense of, I thought I was going mad. I thought I could be just imagining it or dreaming it. And so actually she, as you say, it's closure. Those echoes are in the same way as, you know, of what your life was like before, like with Sam, and even with Hero, with the fact that she killed someone, and these are still clinging on, even though the transformation of their situation has occurred. Yeah. And I guess that's the really interesting dynamic here is how that sort of buttresses up how you deal with it. And in a sense, I guess we will see a lot of people struggling with that change. Like we see with Nora in this episode. You know, she is turned away from the president's compound, because, you know, it's not just that she's turned away. It's for her, it'll be, you know, they don't see the value of what she can bring to the, and after being the president's aide, that's a significant thing to process.
And completely consumed her life beforehand, and suddenly it's like, they won't even let me in because I'm not on the list. You know.
So
why would Jennifer put her on the list? Because they had that massive argument. She wouldn't even think about this woman, former president's aide. But it is a person with massive power in the past and massive access within the world of the government is suddenly gone and suddenly told to turn away and go home effectively. Yeah.
So, I mean, I thought this was all really kind of spot on, actually.
And one of the things I wonder about how the story's playing out. You know, obviously we have Yorick himself being the last man alive, effectively. And the way these scenes play out with Hero, where she's going in and there's all of these people looking for their partners, looking for what happened to their partners, not moving on with their life. If they realize that Yorick is still alive, doesn't that reignite the hope that possibly their partners are alive? They haven't given up on it. So are they going to start to look even harder? Possibly maybe one of their husbands or one of their sons might be alive somewhere, kind of thing. So that's the big scary side of what the burden that Yorick has to carry, really, isn't it?
And it is. It's this constant fear, and it harkens back. And every now and again, I really do like when shows choose a very poignant and correct title. It's like when you win the lottery, because every now and again it's just they picked it for like whatever. But this one is, would certain people in this event, post this event, be kind? Would it change them for the better? Would it change the needs for Nora? Would they be kind to Nora? Would the wife of an adulterer be kind when she finds the lover? Would Yorick be kind, or would people who find Yorick be kind?
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Excellent first point. Chris, what about yourself, John? What's your major moment from the episode?
Well, I think my major moment, and it's about the idea of, would people be kind to Yorick when they first meet him? Maybe you could argue I'm the shallow one here, whether it's because I'm picking Yorick again, or whether it's because I'm picking him as naked as the day he was born. In the same way as that not only do the ladies in the laundrette see a man, 65 plus days since the event, they see him in, I guess, all his glory as well. And I have to say, you know, I think this was just, from a comedy point of view, I loved this moment. The fact that not only was he being spotted as a man by women for the first time in a world without men, but he was effectively trying to get dry clothes from off the hanger at the laundrette. And this is where you really saw Yorick. He, you know, certainly faced with a gun in his face, pointed by one of the ladies. It was, you know, he just cowered. He went fetal. He couldn't deal with this, you know, he's not someone to deal with the stress of antagonism or violence. And he just sort of cowered away into that fetal position. But, you know, the whole thing, I kind of was roaring, laughing, really. And I loved it when he came out with the line, "I don't like doing this naked," which was almost like, just let me put these clothes on and then you can continue to point the gun at my face and we'll have this conversation. And I thought this was just, a great little sort of flash moment, here, after, you know, he's gone into the tunnels to try and find Ampersand, who's run off, and he's gone into the underground, metro system, which is all beginning to flood because the electricity is off, and effectively the pumps that normally would keep it dry are no longer working. And so, you know, this is Ampersand's, you know, again, the character of Ampersand here putting Yorick into a situation where, you know, he's faced with three women who are not entirely happy to see him. I mean, actually, it's really one of the women that persuades her mother or her sister or a friend to put the gun down because she is seeing him as an asset that she can trade. And, this is where, the currency of this world is going to be in Yorick here.
Well, he's the last of them, right? So, yeah.
As a slave, as a object of desire, maybe. As I guess a fountain of whatever it may be. He is a commodity in a world without men. He's a commodity, and that was a really interesting take as well.
Yeah, I think the direction of the scene is really good because, as you say, it does feel like a real comedy moment. It's that it is that moment of naked Yorick, three women standing over him. There's the language barrier as well. There's one person translating while the other two are speaking in a foreign tongue to Yorick, and he's there going, not able to understand what's going on. He's curling up in a ball. And then I do think it twists a bit more. It does twist into this poor, pathetic Yorick moment where all three of them kind of looking at him going, if this is the last man alive, well, he's not even worth it, almost. And that is kind of the piece of Yorick that is, that we'll see a bit in the show, I think, or have seen a bit in the show. He's not the most worthy survivor, but he is the survivor we have, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. That was my top moment, from this. The other interesting Yorick moment as well, is as he was clearing out his apartment to go on the road to do all the tagging and so on, I did notice weirdly a bottle of Vimto on his shelf. And I thought that was a weird choice, and why, I don't know whether Vimto is big in America or not, but I just associate that very much with my childhood, from Northwest England. So I was like, okay, interesting. I thought a Coke bottle or something like that. And instead you've got, it's like having my waddy on there, I guess, for you guys. I've probably not pronounced that the right way at all.
You're right. It's a non-alcoholic cordial. I actually only know Vimto from nightclubs in Manchester where they make a cheeky Vimto, which is a very alcoholic drink that tastes like a blackcurrant cordial. That's the only thing I know about Vimto. But what a weird thing to spot in the episode. And just a little bit about Amp as well. Ampersand. This is very much his character. He gets himself into lots of trouble, leading Yorick, into situations he shouldn't be in, and most of the rest of the gang as well. So I do like that we get to see this early on. We see Amp just running away and leading Yorick into such a difficult situation. This could have been him dead or him captured. So, luckily, the kindest of strangers got him out of it.
Yeah, I mean, actually, just on that moment where Yorick goes into the flooded metro system tunnels, and he slips, and I wondered what was going on here. I had images of alligators in the metro system or something about to pop up, or maybe sort of like a shark moment from the aquarium that all escaped into the underground system.
Season 2.
Well, exactly. And as he comes out of the water, his water in his eyes, it coming down his face, he sees this picture of a man, which is ultimately a poster.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what freaks him out.
He's completely freaked out. He thinks there's a man hiding in the subway, basically.
Yeah.
So, I love that little moment. But again, not the survivor that everybody may have chosen, but he is the survivor we all have. My big moment from the episode, I promise again, like John, I'm not going to pick the same person or the same point every episode, but I think President Brown really deserves a point in this episode, and particularly her discussion with the former First Lady, Lila Bennett, who is now being effectively held prisoner by the new administration. Again, I love how you play out these impacts. She was formerly First Lady. She formerly had a security detail on her at all times in case there was any threat to her life. So that is continuing because, well, technically she is still the last First Lady, right? So, I love this, and I love that she's going pretty insane by everything that's happened. The idea that her husband, the most protected man on the planet, just dropped dead, along with every other man on the planet, has clearly affected her mind. And all she wants to do is go home and bury her son. I just think it's really an interesting, side to that character that we're seeing and how she's interacting with new President Brown here. We see something similar, obviously, with Kimberly, the president's daughter, who's effectively lost 3 sons and a husband. And she's dealing with it by trying to get all the sperm in every sperm bank in America saved in case possibly that could reignite all men in society, because without men, the future is dead, is what she says to President Brown. And President Brown's going, we're not looking at the future. We're looking to just survive this new present that we have, effectively. But the speech of Lila Bennett to President Brown, where she's saying about how she thought about her children as they were being born, is where the line from the episode comes from, would the world be kind? Is this idea that when she was first told she was pregnant with a girl, she was wondering whether her child would grow up pretty enough. Would she be smart enough? Would she have all the right characteristics?
Yeah.
Would she make her angry by the way that she was? Would she have all of the worst characteristics that she had? Is that she worried about her every day until her child was born in case the world wouldn't be kind to her? And then when she was pregnant with her son, it was just, well, I hope all of his guts are on the inside. And that was it, because you don't have to worry about a man. You don't have to worry about a male child being born to you when you're a woman. You have to worry about a woman being born into the world and how the world will treat them as they grow up. And I think it's a really interesting conversation to have, especially because all that's left now are women in this world.
Yeah. And I think that the great thing about how that finishes as well, and on why she feels like this prisoner in this compound with the new administration, is because in the world without men, she now just wants to go home so that she can bury her son who has died in the event. And I found that really emotional from her. But certainly the situation for Lila Bennett is making her go, doolally to some extent, and really sort of lose the plot really of her own sort of reality, really. So I thought that was a really interesting way, like switching that idea. I don't have to worry about my son, as long as the guts are on the inside. But now that's all she can worry about, because he's no longer there and he's dead. And it's just about that closure of burial,
Exactly.
So,
and the response from President Brown as well, you're not a prisoner here. You just have to wait a few more months while we get everything set up, and then you can go, kind of thing. It's like, well, then I am a prisoner for those few more months, right?
Well, no, she wants a detail. So that's one of the main things. Like, she wants a detail to take her and the Kimberly to not Oklahoma, but wherever they wanted to bury the son.
Yes, President Brown won't send them off without a detail because she's the former First Lady, but she's willing to walk there effectively without any detail at all. She's willing to walk out of that door and never come back as long as she's able to leave. So she is effectively a prisoner. Loads of other great moments in the episode. Particularly President Brown's initial speech when she takes over, that moment where she's saying everything's going to actually get worse here. And I know it's scary, but it's going to take every single one of us to work together to get things back up and running. I think it's a really inspiring moment and a great, again, wonderful moment from Diane Lane.
Yeah. Definitely.
Any other notes from the episode, guys?
Yeah, just one from me around Agent 355, because ultimately here we get the first mention of the Culper ring.
Yes, we do.
So, Agent 355, aka Sarah Bergen, aka her actual real name, is not CIA. She's not FBI. It goes beyond that. A deep covert task force known as the Culper Ring, which will pop up it popped up in the comics certainly. So I'm expecting to see this organization and task force again.
What's left of it? Of course,
what's left
of it? She specifically says to Jennifer Brown that there's nobody that I'm reporting to that has been able to brief you on this, but I report to you now.
Yeah.
I report directly to the president, and you can give me any order, and I have to follow it. But I'm not trained to brief you. That's all I can tell you, basically.
Yeah. And that's the other thing, is that Agent 355 is essentially now the link with the president for Culper Ring, and so has assigned herself to Jennifer Brown and is on the mission to find Hero by the president. And of course, with the ending that when she goes in to Hero's apartment, it's actually Yorick that is there, and is swiftly sort of knocked to the ground to be brought back to his mum.
Yes, I do like the first meeting of Yorick and 355 is that she kicks his ass, because that's pretty much the right way to have those two characters meet.
That's how it continues on.
No spoilers, but yes, she does kick his ass a few more times.
Well, you need to look at Yorick. Come on.
Yeah, absolutely.
One final thing just to mention, when Hero and Sam meet back up towards the end of the episode, Sam is pushing Hero to go to her mother. So while we do have Agent 355 bringing the last man on Earth to meet his new president mom at the end of the episode, we do have that moment that Sam and Hero are no longer leaving the city to go off to the transphobic grandmother. Sam is saying, you need to sort this out. You need to do this favor for me and get me to your mother. More than pushing Hero to go back to meet her mother, he's making sure that she is taking care of her friend Sam. She owes him one effectively. So, so they're also going to be on a journey to Washington, I guess,
and you get the understanding about, the strained or complicated relationship that Hero has with her mum with, I won't be halfway sober if I'm around her.
Exactly. Yeah. Excellent stuff. I think that's it for the discussion about this episode overall. Any final thoughts on the episode?
For me, I'll just jump in very quickly. It was a bit of a slow burn, unfortunately. I think, and again, I understand why they're trying to do this. They're trying to really establish who the characters are for everyone, so that you really understand kind of where they are in this greater world. So I'm watching this with my wife, my partner, and I could see her flagging on this episode. And I understand they did the first 3. That is still nearly 3 hours worth of media that you need to get to in order to decide. And this was just, it needed a bit more. I don't know what it just started to flag. It was just slow burn, kind of a drip feed of some of the story when it wasn't even that slow. It wasn't that drip feedy. It had some memorable moments. It just felt elongated, I think, is the only thing. Still thoroughly enjoyed it. Very much with this ending, happy to get into the next episode. It very much, as I said at the very, very start, it felt like it was missing that huge punch at the end. What about yourself, John?
No, I think I'm kind of there with you, actually, Chris. In fact, I've probably enjoyed discussing it more, getting the views, because I just didn't quite know how to slice and dice this episode for myself, I think. And that's what I mean, but I still thoroughly enjoyed it. And I think I probably would enjoy it more watching it after we've had this discussion, because there are some really good memorable moments, and maybe that's why I ultimately picked the naked Yorick in the laundrette, because that felt like a blast of something sort of eventful. And I guess coming off the back of the event, it is ultimately, well, this is the mundane that actually happens after it. Certainly if you're following the presidency. I say mundane, but it's the getting people off the streets out of New York. Right. It's, saving sperm from a bank. It's those kind of less glamorous things.
That's a better way to say it. Yeah. Mundane is probably not how I describe
it's not mundane. But I'd give this 3.5 bottles of Vimto out of 5. I did enjoy it, and I've enjoyed discussing it, actually. I feel like I've got a better idea of this episode. But certainly, yeah, I just didn't quite know how to sort of digest this, in the first instance.
Right.
For sure. But Derek, what about yourself?
Yeah, but overall, I actually really liked this episode. I watched the first episodes, 1 and 2, and then 1 and 2 again before going on to the third episode. So I think I had a better appreciation of it the second time I watched the episode. I think there's so many characters that they're dealing with. This is truly an ensemble show. Despite the title of the show being Why the Last Man, it could absolutely fall on the shoulders of Yarick and explore just his story. But I think what they're doing in this episode particularly is setting up how many people are affected by this. Effectively the entire world. So they're using proxies and using the connections between our major family that we have, the Browns, and everybody that's surrounding them to kind of give us some stories and some ideas of what's going on in this world after this massively tragic event. So, and I think it was dealt with really well. Personally, I loved it. And the big reveal at the end that Yarick is already at his mother's, was a massive shock. I'm sure that was significantly later in the comics. It's towards the end of the first arc, I think, of the comics, about 8 issues in. So I wasn't expecting in episode 2 that already we'd have 355 go in there, pop on the helicopter, right, here you are, your president there, your president mom's there, and you're safe at the White House, or the whatever the new name for the equivalent is, at the Pentagon. But yes, I really, really like this episode, and I'm delighted to go on to episode 3. Let's check in with our listeners and hear what they have to say about the first couple of episodes. First up, Ronaldo over on Facebook says, my partner Eve and I are riveted to this series. Admittedly, I've only read the first volume of the comic series ages ago, so it's all new again to me. You could feel the WTF moment when the owners of the laundrette found Yarick stealing clothes off the rack. Now that he's been discovered, I feel very nervous for him, as he will certainly be seen as a valuable asset. Can't wait to keep watching the show.
Valuable asset is one way of describing Yarick.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
I think he may have had 3 valuable assets, which he was trying to protect.
Mm-hmm.
But, thanks, Ronaldo. I think the laundrette, had that lovely, sort of dual role of being, funny and comedic, but ultimately having that, realization, that he's become an asset, a commodity, which, depending on who he confronts, can be pretty dangerous for him, for sure.
Exactly. Thanks, Ray.
Yes, thank you, Ray. We also had some feedback over on Facebook from Deanna DeBrine Mascal, who said, I'm honestly afraid for Yorick and my heart breaks for Sam. I really don't like Kimber, but the look on her face when she ran into the children, as a mother of a son, this series tears my heart out. I cannot imagine how President Brown feels to hug her living son. I'm so intrigued by Agent 355. The show continues to be a ride. Thanks so much for inviting me to take it with you guys. Thank you, Deanna. And yeah, I think this show probably hits hard for parents. I think that's kind of, they'll have that aspect in there, especially parents of any son or any boys.
Yeah, absolutely. But you're totally right. That moment with Kimberly where she's walking through the hallway and sees the other children running back through there. It's so well directed and so well filmed and so well acted. It's a heartbreaking moment, even though I wasn't a particular fan of the character of Kimberly in the first episode, seeing her experiencing that after the knowledge that she's lost 3 sons and a husband. It was such a great moment.
Yeah, it was a really, great, shot of her, almost like leaning against the wall as well, the sort of the legs taken from under her.
Exactly.
Really good. And yeah, I mean, Agent 355, again, haven't necessarily touched on it as much in this discussion, but yeah, I'm really enjoying Agent 355, I should say. Yes, I'm going to get this wrong all the time. So it's Agent 355, not Agent 355 or Agent 355. I keep getting told off by Derek.
It's not that. It's just that occasionally, to shorten it down, weirdly, people call her 350, which is when I realized her name is 355, not 355. Because that's just how it appears in the comics. So thanks so much, Deanna, and thanks everybody else for your feedback. You can email us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com if you have any thoughts on Why the Last Man or the other show that we're covering each week, which is Marvel's What If. You can also join us over at our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/tvpodcastindustries, where we put up a spoiler post for every episode of the show.
Yes, thank you so much, and we'll speak to you again soon.
Yeah, and of course, we will be back next time with Why the Last Man, Episode 3, Neil. So thanks so much, fellow survivors, for joining us in our Episode 2 discussions. And remember, keep watching, keep listening, and keep surviving. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.